About 6 years ago or so, right after the pandemic went into full swing, I found myself in possession of a neat little game that I'd never heard of before called The Messenger. It was about the time I was beginning to find a real appreciation for games with pixelated art styles, and from what I had seen of the trailers and screenshots, it looked like a very unique game that would swap between 8-bit and 16-bit art styles as a game mechanic. I thought that looked really cool, and I wanted to try it out. What followed would lead to The Messenger becoming a very important game to me for reasons that I honestly don't think I'm profound enough to put into words, but I will try. On the surface, it appears to be nothing more than an appreciative parody of a 2D side-scrolling platformer, specifically Ninja Gaiden on the NES. But diving deeper into the game, you start to realize that it's so much more than that. It's not just a parody. It's not just another game that's trying to pay tribute with inspiration from a genre that came before. It's a beast of its own, and nobody talks about it. First things first, let's get some formalities out of the way. We play as the ninja in a world that has been completely overrun by an army of demons. The apocalyptic event of this demonic army showing up has led to the ocean levels rising to the point where only this one island remains, and it's here where the Demon King terrorizes the final remnants of humanity. There's a prophecy that the humans pass down for generations. Stories of a figure known as the Western Hero will come to defeat the Demon King. This final human village is more of a temple than anything. Everyone trains to fend for themselves, and everyone is required to learn the history of humanity and this prophecy of the Western hero to retain hope. The ninja is one of those, I don't want to learn about history, I want to explore and experience the world for myself types. So much so that every other person in the village, including the master, doesn't expect much from him. This is, of course, when all illusions are shattered by the arrival of the Demon King, who destroys the village before the arrival of the Western hero. Right before the Demon King is about to kill the ninja, the Western hero arrives, flying in on an eagle from the left side of the screen. The Demon King retreats, and the Western hero, who is an archer, gives a task to our ninja. Take this scroll and venture east to the highest summit of the island. Once there, present this scroll to the sages at the peak. Any answers you seek will be given to you along the way. Godspeed, messenger. And there we have it. It's a very simple start that establishes who we are, what our goal is, and the overall tone of the game. Right away, it's apparent that while the game has a story it wants to tell, it's not going to take itself very seriously either. The gameplay is about how you would expect, moving from the left side of the screen to the right, jumping, hitting things with a sword, and collecting a bunch of coins along the way. Of course, the coins in question are these things called time shards, which are used exactly like money to purchase upgrades to health, mana, and new abilities. Speaking of abilities, every single one is useful and feels like it should belong. As if to drive home how not serious this game takes itself, there are many self-referential jokes scattered throughout, such as paying tribute to John Gaiden for the invention of the climbing claws. All essential upgrades to beat the game are awarded as you progress, while others must be purchased. My personal favorite is the rope dart, which most will probably just call a grappling hook. It shoots out a dart on a rope that can be used to hook into walls or onto enemies and pull yourself toward them. It's incredibly fun movement tech. I'm going to use this as an excuse to talk about my favorite character, the shopkeeper. They appear at first as nothing more than a shopkeeper, but very quickly it becomes apparent that they know more than they let on. The joke, of course, being, if I tell you everything, you're not going to have a very fun adventure, now are you? But it's not just the tongue-in-cheek attitude that the shopkeeper brings to the function that I find so endearing. After playing The Messenger so many times in its follow-up title, Sea of Stars, I've come to truly appreciate who the shopkeeper is. Besides selling you upgrades, they offer a sort of mentorship to the messenger, guiding them as they traverse from the left side of the screen to the right. They offer advice for areas and bosses, but more importantly, they offer entertainment in the form of stories. Stories that may be funny or insightful. Stories that build the world that you're currently exploring. Or even stories that may offer a glimpse into reality, into the mind of the team that built the game. After each area, there's usually a boss to clear before moving on to the next, as is tradition. Each of the bosses have something unique about them, but something they all tend to share is humility. By the end of each fight, they recognize that the messenger is simply too strong for them in some capacity, or realize that the fight is a huge misunderstanding. On top of all that, we're not a bloodthirsty warrior, we're just a messenger. We have shit to do, we have a scroll to deliver. This must be what it feels like to be the Skyrim courier. So oftentimes, after defeating them, the boss will just let us pass without the need of further violence. Each area is also very distinct with sprites that I just love. On top of all of that, the music is banging. There's not a single song in this entire soundtrack that misses. Eric Brown, you're a frickin' genius. The shit's so catchy that even the mushrooms be singing. As much as I'd like to gush about pretty much every aspect of this game, some forward momentum is in order. As we reach the summit of Glacial Peak, we discover 3 sages who have prepared a test for the one who bears the scroll, with one of those sages being our very own shopkeeper. We are to ascend further up the Tower of Time, defeat its greatest challenge, then plunge into its depths. If I had to pick something that I'd say I like least so far, it would be the fight with the Time Golem. If done normally, it's a really good sequence, but unfortunately it's incredibly easy to cheese by using the wingsuit and the rope dart to completely avoid the bottom part of the arena where most of the fight happens. It might be unfair to say that it's bad when it's easily able to be cheesed, just don't cheese it, right? If you want to do the fight, then do the fight as intended. My real problem with it is that it's the only fight where an exploit is easily discoverable on your first playthrough. I haven't found any exploits similar in any other boss fights. There are mechanics of at least one other boss fight or two that I personally don't like, but that's different, that's a mechanic. While the game doesn't take itself too seriously, it is trying to have somewhat of an epic moment. To have such an exploit, and maybe it's not even really an exploit, but to have the fight be this easy to where 90% of the golem's attacks are guaranteed not just to miss, but not even be seen in the climax of the first act, unintentionally downplays the moment they're going for. Of course, right after there's dialogue between the sages as if they're actively in disbelief that the ninja of all people would be the one to take the next step in fulfilling the grand prophecy. But that's the game intentionally giving your character shit through its writing. That's the writers insulting your character because they wrote him to be kind of dumb. The sages send the messenger 500 years into the future with the task of delivering the scroll across the clouds until it becomes apparent that time is cyclical. An entire new generation completely removed from the village grew up and has taken over that spot. But the prophecy remains. Stay hidden and wait for the arrival of the Western hero to defeat the Demon King. Except this time we're on the other end of that prophecy. We've become the Western hero that the prophecy speaks of, who is meant to pass on the scroll to a new messenger. As neat as that is, if it were the end, then this would be a pretty anticlimactic game. We approach from the west and hand off the scroll to the soldier, giving him the same task the archer once gave to us. Once the task is done, we're sent back to the shop. The shopkeeper finally lets us open the cabinet. The big secret all this time was that it was just a normal cabinet containing blue robes. We're given one, and our life as the new shopkeeper begins and ends very quickly. This marks not only a change in story tone, but also gameplay. If everything continued according to the status quo, we would become the new shopkeeper to the soldier. Instead, the soldier had been killed on his journey, and the scroll had nearly been lost. The original shopkeeper, or at least our shopkeeper, fetches the scroll and confers with the other sages before returning and telling us that we're to take the scroll back out and make a journey once again. There's another prophecy above the Western hero. The Western hero was the human prophecy that kept the cycle going and kept humanity alive. Now we're entering what I call the Sage prophecy that states only a messenger who carries the scroll for 2 cycles can break the curse keeping the world stuck in this time loop. Before now, we've only gone from left to right, but now the world is expanded entirely. The scroll we've been carrying turns out to be a map. We've just never opened it because, again, the ninja isn't very bright. The second half of the game sees us collecting a series of music notes in order to break the curse on a music box within the Tower of Time. The game has now changed from the standard one-way side-scrolling platformer to a more Metroidvania-style platformer. This half of the game is a little weaker on the gameplay front, at least to me. Metroidvanias all share a similar problem that just comes with the genre, where backtracking is the name of the game. We'll be visiting a lot of the same areas, trying to figure out exactly what it is that we're supposed to be doing in order to progress. It's not always readily obvious, and that's why the prophet's available to offer guidance in the form of riddles. If his guidance is too cryptic, the shopkeeper will offer to translate the prophet's words into plain text, so ideally we'll never get completely stuck on what to do next. The cool aspect is that we're now able to travel entirely between the two timelines, our own and the future. This is possible due to the messenger fulfilling the second half of the prophecy and being attuned to the scroll, or whatever explanation they give. There are blue sparkles that you jump into to change timelines that are used to solve some puzzles in each area. The reason I say that this segment is weaker than the first half is because a lot of these areas don't feel like they were designed to be run backwards. The Underworld, the Howling Grotto, and Glacial Peak specifically give the most trouble when it comes to trying to navigate them in reverse in order to progress further or collect any secrets that you want to find. The option to run them normal is possible, but it often takes longer than if one were to try to run the level in reverse. Yet, running in reverse often requires a good amount of trial and error to get certain jumps right. It's not a big deal in New Game, but New Game Plus offers a more permanent punishment for dying too often. Referring to the story, the second half is better than the first. Before now, it was a lot of homage to the games that came before and self-referential jokes. Of course, the jokes are still there, there's still plenty to go around, but the tone seems to shift from being jokey to something a little more serious, more passionate, with each music note collected sharing something along the lines of the hopes, dreams, and strength of the people that have lived here crystallized in a manner to create this music note. Maybe that's a bit cheesy, but I like to think that it's part of the charm. Besides, when the world ends and a majority of the final remnants of humanity are killed every 500 years or so, maybe all we really need to keep going is a little joke and a little hope. That was really fucking gay. New areas also get unlocked in the second half, with my personal favorite being the Riviere Turquoise. In order to access it, it's a long puzzle that needs to be completed involving going back to the ninja village, getting some astral tea seeds from the master, hiking to the top of the Searing Crags in the past, planting the seeds in the ground, returning to the future for the newly sprouted leaves, and then returning to the master for the technique known as True Sight, which is just a candle. Take the candle down to the catacombs and find a certain room with a moving platform and 2 bats. That'll lead you down into a super dark cave, which is what we need the candle for. Technically, you don't need the candle if you memorize the path like speedrunners, but I'm not that, so I need the candle. Navigating the cave, and then boom, you're in the new area. The gimmick of the area is that the past is in ruin after being overrun by demons, but the future is blossoming and beautiful due to the demon being defeated by a messenger. If you know where this is going, yes, it's a plot hole or a time paradox, but honestly, who cares? The game doesn't take itself that seriously to have to answer for how this place can exist. Just enjoy the scenery for what it is. Even before playing Sea of Stars, which I'm sure I'll talk about at some point in the relative near future, I already had a love for the messenger, specifically for a scene in the Sunken Shrine. After traversing the area and collecting the sun and moon crest to open the inner sanctum of the shrine, we find 2 monoliths engraved with a sun and a moon. Again, even before coming to an understanding of what exactly the shrine is, this little cutscene gets me a little. It's one of the few genuinely serious moments that's presented to the player, and one of the many examples of the amount of love and passion that exists for this game, not only during development, but after. We enter the inner sanctum, and the guardian gods of old begin speaking to us. They tell us that the place we're in is a long-forgotten place, even in a forgotten world. The people of this world had forgotten the gods, and became too comfortable in their security that they took it for granted when a great calamity struck, and caused the entire world to be flooded save for the little patch of land we exist on. But even that would become cursed. Even before this moment, it's clear that this is a doomed world, but you never truly appreciate the scope of the calamity. This island is all we knew, but these gods expand our scope beyond what we could see, confirming only what we could suspect up to this point. There's nothing for us to find, and nobody to save us. The only solution to survive was to break the curse on our island. There was always hope that humanity could achieve some level of security on the last piece of land they had by hiding, and hoping that one day someone will save them. Yet here, with the music note that the Guardian Gods present, they show that this is the only help they can provide. Their power has waned on this world for far too long, and the music note is the last of these gods' presence in this world, and now the rest is up to us. The music notes we've been collecting allow us to break the curse, being maintained by the music box within the Tower of Time. Admittedly, it's sprung out of nowhere, and if this were a game meant to be taken seriously for its story content over the real message it's trying to deliver, it would be worth more harsh criticism. The story of the music box comes from the original settlement after the flood in the place we now know as the Forlorn Temple. After the demons came, they killed everyone in the temple, and those who escaped fled into the forest and settled where the ninja village is now. In the first settlement, there were two people whom the people called leader, Muse and Phantom. Muse was killed, and once the people who survived were out of the temple, Phantom rushed the Demon King. As a result, Phantom was defeated but not killed. Instead, the Demon King took his most prized possession, a music box dedicated to Muse, and turned it into the source of the curse overtaking the island and trapping Phantom inside, forcing him to endlessly play its tune to continue the curse, which causes time to repeat itself every 500 years. In order to one day end the curse, Phantom wrote a letter from within and sent it out. Once the people received it, the letter itself became a source of magic that allowed one to become attuned to time magic. Those who became attuned and traveled throughout space and time formed an order known as the Order of the Blue Robes, donned as such because the idea of running into yourself is incredibly distressing on the mind, and the robes would conceal your identity. Despite a good 5 minutes of exposition after several hours of play, I really enjoy this concept, that being the blue-robed sages we've been speaking to are old messengers. This begs the question of who the shopkeeper really is, and in truth, we never really get an answer. We know it's not the archer, we don't know exactly where that guy went, or who he's even supposed to be, but we know he's none of the three blue-robed sages we've been interacting with, because they've clearly been around for a really long time. No, instead it's revealed that the shopkeeper is the first blue robe, and this explains why he acts the way that he does. He's a fairly cynical character who operates mostly as a middleman between the current messenger holding the scroll and the other blue robes. He set up the shop to help the messengers complete their task, but after several lifetimes of watching messengers fail, it's not hard to see why he's oftentimes hard on us, possibly even insulting at times. But he's always there, always willing to lend a hand in some way that he safely can without jeopardizing the last of humanity, and always willing to share a story. Of all the stories told by the shopkeeper, and of all the messages that the messenger is trying to tell, the true story that they're trying to share is very close to home, not only for me, but for a great many of us. The shopkeeper's tale doesn't just end at a fun distraction. They're meant to inspire one to follow their passions, to take risks in order to find their happiness. They even tackle the concept of happiness itself by not allowing said passions and prospects of the future to overtake the moment, to live life day by day and appreciate the life that we have now and the form of happiness that can bring. That message may be meaningless to some, but to others, it's everything. Every story has a message it wishes to share, but not all people understand that meaning. Yet some will. There will always be the surface story of the messenger, and if that's all you care about, wonderful. But it isn't really what I wanted to talk about. The surface story isn't the message that has meaning to me. There are aspects to it, sure, that I resonate with, but all in all, it's the subtext, the story that isn't easily found on the surface that truly made me fall in love with The Messenger. And there's one key moment that stands out to me personally. A key line, if I'm being honest. It's a line that's likely said to every single messenger that came before, and eventually came to us. The first person we hear it from is the archer when we first start our journey. Then it's our turn to say it to the soldier when it appears our time with the scroll is past. It's a line that wouldn't hold as much meaning if the game were easy. The Messenger is not an easy game, especially towards the end. When I first played it, I wanted to give up so many times. There are instant death pits and high damaging spikes everywhere, and normally I would incline that instant death traps are unfair, but it really does depend on the game. Side-scrollers and platformers are the best candidates to have them because movement tech is the name of the game. If the movement doesn't feel solid, if progress doesn't seem reasonable, and if it doesn't feel like there's anything one can learn from failure, then it's unfair. It's always tedious no matter what, but there are levels to which anyone is willing to participate. And for me, I'm glad I was willing to stick through it. To me, it's worth it. At the end of our journey, before facing the final challenge of freeing Phantom from the curse, and after everything we've learned so far, there's only one thing left to say. Godspeed, Messenger. The Messenger has its strong points and its weak points, but its message came to me at one of my lowest points. At the time, I feel I needed to hear it most. And for that reason, The Messenger holds a very, very special place in my heart as one of my favorite games of all time. From its environments to its stories, its level layout to its soundtrack. It's a game very much worth your time if you've never experienced it. And maybe after all, it's not a game for you. You won't get it. That's okay. Some will. My name is Box. Please like and subscribe, and I hope you have a wonderful day.